How are you today? How are you today? Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, September the 29th, 2021, and you're at the City of Opa-locka CRA Budget Workshop. The time is now 5:35, and we're gonna ask everyone if you would, well, Madam Clerk, can you do the roll call first, then we'll.
Board Member Bass,
I'm here.
Board Member Paget,
Here.
Board Member Taylor,
Here.
Board Member Titus,
Here.
Board Member Williams,
Here.
Vice Chair Davis,
Here.
Chair Russell,
Here.
attendance confirmed.
We all stand for prayer. We're gonna ask Board Member Bass if she will lead us in prayer.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Madam Chair, at the moment, we don't have any public comments.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna move right into, thank you to all of the board members that are here tonight and that have worked diligently throughout the week with our interim CRA director to bring this budget together so that we could get what we need to get accomplished and help the city move right along. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Delane. Hopefully, everyone have most of your questions answered, that we'll be able to be productive tonight. Mr. Delane.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, board members. Madam Chair. It's great to be here today. I think this is an excellent opportunity for the board to, make its voice heard and the community's voice heard in looking at opportunities to enable the CRA to participate in community development and community redevelopment. Within the packet that's been provided to you all is the outline of the budget. It's 3 particular items. The first one I would like to review is actually the operating budget. And this is actually the document showing the breakdown of the CRA operations, CRA objectives for fiscal year 22, as well as a review of fiscal year 21. So if you open your packet to page 5, it'll begin on that page. And I'll give you a few moments to review that document at this time. And if there are any questions, I'm also open to answering of those questions.
Make note of that.
Of note, I will note that under the roles where you'll see CRA board executive director and a position for CRA administrator, there's also an asterisk for the potential for the CRA to provide to be provided services through a consultant or consultant firm due to staffing complications.
Any questions from the board concerning the mission statement or the makeup of the CRA board, CRA department? Any questions? Okay, we can move on to the next. talk about the board priorities first.
A couple of board priorities and things that the CRA board has actually enabled over the past year was the facade improvement program. That program had 5 participants. Each have begun their redevelopment activities, and they're looking to complete by the end of this year. 3 of those applicants have actually begun their phase 1 of the facade improvement, and 2 of those applicants have applied for their for a fee waiver. 1 has been approved for that fee waiver. The next item is for 50% match for the Park and Recreation Master Plan. On last meeting, which was
I don't remember.
on our last CRA meeting, we voted to approve the match for the Parks Master Plan at a dollar amount of $75,000. And that'll be allocated to assist in the funding for the Parks Master Plan with the city of Opa-locka. And then the last item for priorities is the CRA had allocated $50,000 for park amenities. That fund hasn't been expended as of yet, so that'll actually be dovetailed into next year's budget for park amenities.
Any questions before we move on to the objectives? Seeing no questions, we can move on.
We'll briefly go over the fiscal year 2022 objectives. The first item speaks to staffing, which will be to bring on 1 executive director and 1 staff person. Will be pretty much an executive assistant or administrative assistant in that role to assist the executive director, as well as looking at, as I mentioned, a CRA consultant or consultant firm for the management of CRA projects and activities. The next item is looking at investing in marketing and special events, as well as creating an events calendar with the board and community input moving forward. We're also looking at the creation of a new CRA website, which will be a lot more user-friendly to allow for users to be able to utilize and navigate the website almost seamlessly. The next item speaks to city streetscapes. That allocation will be $75,000, and that'll go to items such as streetlight repair, beautification, landscaping, activities of that nature. When we look to approve this budget, it will be provided a list of activities for streetscape renovation. The next item is a parks fence project, the partial match for the park fencing project, and that is allocated for $60,000. This is a match program with city dollars that have already been allocated for park fencing in the CRA area. And that's what these dollars will go towards. The next item is for renovation of historic city properties. And I'll elaborate on that briefly. This board actually approved an allocation of $175,000 during a previous board meeting. However, due to conversations that we've had, staff has had with the Public Works Department, Historic City Hall is actually being funded by Miami-Dade County through allocation of the GOB funds. So we're looking at opportunities to fund other historic city properties for their rehab. And this $250,000 allocation will be going towards those projects. The next item we'll be speaking on is the parks amenities, and as well as the partial payment of the Parks Master Plan. As mentioned, the Parks Master Plan allocation is $75,000. And the remaining $100,000 will be going to park amenities to assist Parks and Recreation on activities for the rehabilitation of the park system. The item after that is for the investment in development assistance program and development incentives at a sum of $750,000. And just to show an example of the type of programming that will provide for is a facade improvement program, which we dovetailed into this line item, and small business assistance program. Each will be $100,000, and we'll be dictating the terms of what those funding apparatus will be. Next item is presentation of proposed site plans for public-private partnerships and joint venture development opportunities. As the downtown master plan has come to light, as well as conversations that staff has had with developers, we're looking to engage those conversations and development activities within the CRA shortly. And with the downtown master plan coming online, that'll be able to give them pretty much a roadmap of the type of development we're looking to achieve, not just in downtown, but the rest of the Opa-locka CRA. And the next remaining items is reviewing impact fees regarding affordable housing, elderly housing, and veteran as an additional incentive, which will be coming out of that development incentive item, as well as looking at mixed use development and elderly affordable housing. And then lastly, we'll be looking at grant opportunities for CRA projects to pretty much assist in the incentive programs that the CRA is looking to facilitate. And then lastly is the review of the CRA plan update, which will look at the FON, which speaks to the expansion of the CRA.
Before we move further, any questions for Mr. Delane on? We want to dive right into the budget. Okay, I'm going to for the 21, the FY 21 objectives, we're gonna skip over that and we're gonna move right into the budget, and then if we have time, we'll come back to that, but we want to get right into the budget. And in saying that, Mr. Delane, I think have met with all of the board members. And so the document that you have in front of you is a result of conversations with board members. So hopefully, as much as could be provided, your suggestions or recommendations, along with the recommendations of staff, have been put together. And the document that you see before you is the result of that. So with that, Mr. Delane, you want to start on from the top?
The item you have before you is the budget narrative, and this is the explanation of each line item. Starting with salaries, we're looking at for the executive director, as well as the salary for the staff member that would be assisting the executive director. The item under that is for benefits, which will be facilitated for each staff member. And then under operating expenses. So
Any questions concerning staff?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Through the chair.
Vice Chair Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question as it relates to salaries. I know, well, right now I only see 2 executive staff, 1 executive director and 1 staff assistant. I know the last budget, we spoke of some allocations from individuals from other departments that also provide services. Has that changed, or are we looking at a more independent focus where, I guess, taking on this new staff member?
Good, Chair. We've actually looked at opportunities for the CRA to be more of an independent agency. And with that, I know that it was brought up that the board wants a more dedicated staffing to be able to facilitate the operations of the CRA board and the CRA activities. So in putting together this new budget, having a full-time director as well as a full-time staff member will be able to begin that process. This is only the beginning, and I'll elaborate on additional services to help elaborate on, the assistance and the programming of the working on the programs, things of that nature.
Right. The only reason I brought it up is because I know that those allocations spoke to specific functions such as, planning, zoning, like those sort of support services that don't currently exist within the CRA organization. So, to see the transition, again, executive director, which has been the will of the board, to have him lead the agency, I don't see where that expertise as far as planning and zoning was filled within his budget. So that's the only reason I brought it up. And I'll just, yield to the rest of the presentations. Thank you.
Vice Chair Davis, as in speaking to Mr. Delane and talking about moving in the direction of us having our own dedicated staff, that was also a concern of mine, is those gaps in expertise that we need. And I think the idea of Mr. Delane is to capture that in consulting, in some type of consulting role. And also, it was my suggestion that in those salaries, we say up to 90,000 or up to 55,000, because you don't know what type of applicants you're going to get. And if you get someone that comes in and apply for the job, and we have here $55,000, and their credentials don't match that, then you have to pay them $55,000. So I would like to see the wording and the budget narrative that says up to $90,000. Because I think even when you're starting with a new executive director, you don't want to start off at the high end, not knowing what you're gonna get. And we have full confidence in our director that we have now, but I think that to be a good steward over the monies, that we need to say up to, because we need to have a range in which we start and then let them work towards, because if they don't have anything to work towards, I think we would be putting ourselves in a kind of funny situation that, we don't want to start off in with an executive director. And I've been a part of the CRA before, where we had an executive director and, we had $85,000 budget. That's what they got, $85,000. So I would like to make sure that that wording is put in the budget narrative for both positions.
I agree wholeheartedly, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Question to the manager. Do we have to make a motion to amend this budget to include that language? Or is that something you're going to say on record and make a modification right now? Or how do we handle that?
Well, we're workshopping it right now, and then when we have the meeting at 6:30, then we'll be voting on the actual budget. So what we put in now, I'm looking at the attorney, what we put in now will be added so that when we vote on the actual budget, it'll be a part of it?
Correct.
Okay.
So do we need to make a motion to add that, or is it a friendly amendment from management to make that happen?
Well, you're not going to be voting or anything. You can get a consensus of it.
Consensus of it? And then at the meeting,
Then
Yes.
you
we
have
would-
to vote to add it in.
we have to vote to add it in.
Yes.
All right, so I just want to make a note of that. Thank you.
Okay. And I see our manager, he's making a note of it so that when the time comes, we make sure that it's added in. Anyone else from the board? Yes, sir, Board Member Taylor.
This position, when advertised, what amount will you be advertising for a salary? Because you can't just put open, but I know you try, is there like a minimum of what you're trying to go down, and then the maximum will be 90? So if you want
Well, I
a
don't,
good caliber person,
Yes.
the salary needs to be appeasing so that
yes, well, I don't think I don't think we're going to be advertising this position because we already have a manager in this position, which will be on loan from the city. So we would just be bringing him on as a full-time executive director. And even in that, we need to have a range of salary so that he will have something to work towards. So if you want to say from when we do the actual voting on the budget, then we can put in a dollar amount, 75 to 90, something like
Yeah,
that.
that's what I'm,
Yes,
that's what I'm pretty much getting at.
yes. So when we do the vote on the actual budget, that would be a friendly amendment to that line item.
And
Does
through the-
that answer your question, Board Member Telly? Yes.
And through the chair, there is a range that I've actually provided to HR, which is the range as well as the job descriptions for each. So I'll be able to make that available.
Okay, and I think one other thing, we need to make sure that the board understands that for in reference to benefits, you want to elaborate on that? Because the CRA at this time is not in a position to provide medical insurance and all of those things. So this employee or employers will be like a loan from the city, but the CRA will be paying the salary. You could elaborate on that a little bit, Mr. Delay.
Yes, through the chair. Essentially, the staff members will be a employee per se of the city due to the ramifications for insurance purposes and for FRS purposes. However, those payments will be made directly from the CRA to the city for that staff person. So that way they're able to retain their insurance, FRS, and all the other benefits of being a state city employee.
Because at this time, the CRA is not in a position to provide medical insurance within a reasonable rate, because you only have like 2 employees versus the city, going through, I guess y'all go through legal cities or whoever, they have their medical insurance through. Everyone understands? Got a good understanding? Okay. All right, we can move on to the next line item.
Yes, so the next item will be discussing operational expenses, and I'll start from the top. The first item speaks to other professional services, which will include legal services. We're also looking at hiring a consultant to process the minutes. We know that, over the previous time, the board has been active. The logging of minutes have been a difficult task, and we feel that, it's 21st century and we're looking for opportunities to, be more automated in our minutes recording. So that's an opportunity we're looking at. Also, I included in this with the asterisk for this is where the line item for the CRA consulting services would be. With each of them, and I'll elaborate on the dollar amount. So currently for legal services, the CRA is paying $24,000 a year. For the procurement of the logging of minutes, that'll be an allocation of $10,000. And the initial rate that we looked at for the CRA consulting services is $40,000, which will bring you up to a total of $74,000. I put that as an asterisk because that number is subject to change whenever we do a bidding process or receive quotes, but that'll be something that is a variable expense. Any question on that item? Okay. The next item speaks to accounting and auditing. With the Opa-locka CRA, we're looking to differentiate ourselves from the city in certain activities, and auditing is a huge item that the CRA needs to begin to look at to procure our own services in that regard. Next item speaks to state and county fees, which is pretty much self-explanatory. The CRA pays these fees every year. The item underneath that is for travel expenses. With the board looking to be more experienced as well as gain more knowledge in different areas in regards to redevelopment. There are conferences as well as other activities for experience gathering, and being able to afford for travel to those conferences will be encumbered in this account, in this item. The next item. Oh,
And just to go a little further, we have a conference that Mr. Delane will be attending. You want to talk about?
so yes, myself as well as Vice Chair Davis will be attending the Florida Redevelopment Conference, which will be held this year in Fort Myers, Florida. And this conference will be an opportunity for us to gain knowledge as well as a better understanding of redevelopment activities that can occur in our CRA. This is something that every CRA in the state of Florida attends every year and is always well attended. I've always heard great reviews from it, so I think it's imperative for this agency to be an active participant in these types of conferences.
Okay, any questions so far? Can I get a bobble of the head, a nod? So- Okay, moving right along.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Well, I know it's been not to wear my other hat on the city, but I know from a financial standpoint, we've requested quarterly at bare minimum, but we would like to receive monthly fiscal reports related to spending with budgeted to actual comparatives. My hope is, I know, we're going through transition with the CRA, but to have that same level of reporting
Yes.
on the CRA, as that, of course, would help us fulfill our fiduciary responsibility of, ensuring that we're on track with spending. So I know that, this year we decided to have independent auditing services. But going forward, if we can, I don't know if that can be included in that, or maybe it's something, we could do by amendment or maybe even next fiscal year. But definitely to have those detailed reports, I think is important for this board as well.
I agree with you, Vice Chair, and that's something that this board have requested. We do get a copy of the bank statements in our reporting, but we haven't gotten itemized reports. So that's one thing that I've discussed with the interim manager that board members would like to see. And then also policies and procedures, since we are going to be kind of like going on our own, even if we're going to adopt the policies and procedures that the city have in place. If you look at the last independent audit that we got, and if you go through that document, that will give us some guidelines as to things that we as a CRA need to make sure in place that are not in place, that were not in place at that time. I think they've been answered today. So that fiscally, that's one of the items that we definitely have been discussing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, sir.
Right, the next item is speaking to advertisement, which is for, and then I want to make an amendment to that to cancel out where it says PZA and HEP. This is advertisement for the CRA board to advertise our meetings throughout the year. The item after that speaks to marketing and special.
Just for a second. So you're amending that to just say advertisement requirements for board meetings.
Yeah, for CRA board meetings.
Okay, for CRA board meetings. Okay, and that's when you put it in the newspaper and wherever you have to, by law, advertise.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, you can move right along.
All right, the next item speaks to marketing and special events. I believe that this is something that the CRA should take a look at as opportunities to sell the CRA and sell the fact that the Opa-locka CRA is an active agency, as well as a strong community partner. This is an opportunity to look at coordinating events, looking at special signage, as well as looking at fence screening signage for activities of the CRA, as well as the funding for the new website will be coming from this line item.
Through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for adding this line item, marketing and special events, because we know that's always been one of my special projects I've been working on in the city. But I would like to make a recommendation. Is this the time to make recommendations? So we can, I would like to make a recommendation to increase 35,000 to 50. Already the website takes up a third of that 35,000. Someone that have been around people that are a part of marketing, and if, especially if this was broken up, marketing and then special events, but if this is going to be placed in one line item, I cannot see $35,000 being enough to cover, to market what we want to do. If we're saying we're coming out and we're going to be big and bold and bad, then let's not sell ourselves short with $35,000. Thank you.
Any other board members on that item? Board Member Williams, I think that's something good for us to look at, because you know I'm the sign lady here. You know, let's not start talking about signs. I'm the sign lady, but $50,000, what do you think, Mr. Director? Mr. Manager?
I think it's a good start. We looked at $35,000, but we also looked at $50,000 to look at opportunities for, as you say, more signage, but also working with community partners for special events, and looking at other opportunities to sell the CRA in the best light. And that also looks at publications, that looks at, you know, creating handbills and flyers that we can give out to the community, give out to the residents, things like small things like stickers, like things like that, to say, hey, we're here to support, and we're here to work with you all in redeveloping this community. So that's why this line item is important, to make sure that the CRA is a visible light in this community.
And in saying that, we also are not only looking at CRA dollars, but partners that come to the city as well to partner with us, developers, and we're also looking to them to be good partners as well, you know, and to, when we're doing things, to come in and be a part. So 50,000 or 35,000 might seem like a small amount, but that's just what the CRA will be setting aside. But we'll also be looking at other avenues of dollars to come in to do some special events and marketing as well. Because I believe that people that come to do business with the city, I hope they're coming with some money. You know, they're not just coming looking for everything from the city. So they're looking to come to invest as well. So if it's the consensus of the board to increase to 50,000 or stay to 35,000, what's the consensus of the board?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question. What was the line item in previous years for marketing and special events?
I don't think
If there was a line item, because
I don't think we had a line item for marketing and special events.
Okay, so this is a new expenditure.
Yes.
And I guess the question is to move the amount of the item from 35,000 to 50.
Yes. And I'm quite sure this was done with looking at what the city, kind of what the city spends and, you know, and coming up with a number, because this is something that Mr. Delane, it's probably fairly new to him as well. So your input is greatly appreciated. So that's why we're here. So if you don't think 35 is enough, if you want to move it up to 50, if we don't spend it all, you could always have a rollover.
I mean, I do think marketing and special events in general is important for promotion and overall, you know, goals of the agency. My issue is where would those funds come from? Because we're talking about roughly what, 15,000 extra dollars. So I don't know if Mr. Anderson can maybe speak to through the chair, you know, where we, or what type of fiscal analysis, you know, this would include, like where we get the money from, what we have to take away, or
Yes,
yes.
Ms. Anthony.
Good evening, Bob Anderson budget. The way this budget is set up right now, you're talking about approximately $1.3 million of new revenue, and you're also going to have a fund balance. Contrary to what's in the forecast, is probably going to be about 150,000 more. So you're going to have a fund balance somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million. So it will come out of it. The budget as set up at the moment without the change was actually going to use 363,000. This would just increase it by another 15,000.
Okay, well, after hearing that, I'm okay with the budget increase.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So to be clear, so we're going over budget 350,000 with this current budget. We
Ms.
have
Anthony?
350,000 over expenditures as our revenues.
Yes, sir. You're taking advantage of the fact that you've accumulated a large surplus over the last 3 or 4 years, and you're now, the recommendation is to start to make use of it.
Yeah, I would prefer to make a cut somewhere else in the budget in order to accommodate that, than to continue going to surplus. Like as a CRA, we have to build up that surplus for major projects. And if we're going to be bringing on the executive director, it's going to take time for an executive director to wrap his mind, get his work out the kinks in terms of what this CRA needs and how we can make it happen. And if we're continuing to cut into our surplus, when it comes to year 3 to 5, when someone really gets into that job role, what type of funds will they have to really take the project in this city to another level? So I'm in favor of always continue to put away those funds, so that when we get to a point when we want to make a big splash, like we really have a big development in the city, we have those funds available. So to get to that end, I'm always more towards, let's figure out how not to use the surplus at this time and make any cuts as necessary. So that's what I will advocate for, and that's my only actual concern with this budget. I give kudos to the manager. It does look like there were discussions made with everyone. I can hear based upon a conversation in previous meetings. I'm looking at this description. I can see a thoughtful consideration to that. My only concern is that we're going hundreds of thousands over budget this year and using that surplus. So that's my concern, and I will hope that we can make a modification somewhere else.
Okay, well, what I would like for us to do is to keep the $50,000 increase on the table. And then as we go through the budget, as we get towards the end, maybe we could decrease somewhere along the line. But in saying that, Mr. Anthony, I don't see where the surplus is in these documents. Help me understand.
I think there may be another document in your package that'll highlight that for you in the county format.
Okay, all right,
Right.
okay. Okay, that would be an actual meeting. Okay, thank you. Board Member Paget, we'll take what you say into consideration if it's the consensus of the board to leave the increase of 50,000, and maybe as we go through the line item, the manager's made a note of it. I've made everyone make a note of it so that we could maybe come back and get that 15,000 from somewhere else. Okay?
To the chair.
Yes, sir.
Okay, two things. Number one, I'm also in agreement with my colleague in regards to moving it from somewhere else.
Okay.
I don't want to tap into the surplus so much because it just increases it. I want to have the cushion so that in the future, and we discussed this too,
Yeah.
that we have monies that we can do other major projects with, as
Okay.
opposed to just doing with the advertisement. Not in other than that, when it comes to the website, you talked about the website being user-friendly. Will the website be accessible to applications? So for the facade program, can I apply online? For any programming that we're doing through the CRA, can I apply online as opposed to doing it paper and pencil?
I'm going to open the floor to our IT director to elaborate on that with the functionality of the website, of the new website.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board. So Mr. Delaney and I looked at neighboring CRAs and the websites and the technology being used. We particularly like the Hollywood CRA website. So that is exactly where we based the pricing from. So the fillable forms, the application, all that is available in this
Fantastic.
price.
Okay,
Fantastic.
okay. That was my,
That's what we're looking for, that it's, when you say user-friendly, because today, modern technology, everybody wants to go online and fill out documents, even make payments or donations or
Exactly.
whatever it is. If you're having an event, you know, they have those things now where you go and, you know, purchase your ticket, even if it's free. So we're looking at all of those things. Yes, sir.
If I may very quickly, the most important thing about this website, besides the functionality, is that we have our own CRA domain, meaning it'll be Opa-locka CRA.com or .org, completely independent from the city website. And that's the goal, to have our own identity to represent the board and its missions.
okay, now, two things. Number one, what's the timeline for the website? When do you think it'll be live? That's question one. And number two, will you be able, can we set it in a way where if they go to opa-locka.gov that they can access the CRA website from there?
So for question number one, I don't have an exact answer for that. It's depending on their workload. But I would definitely say less than I would say somewhere between 90 and 120 days, could be less, but I feel confident saying those numbers. And number two, yes. So the city will still advertise the CRA within the website, except when you click, it won't be going to a page within the Opa-locka website. It'll be going to a completely independent
that's what I
CRA
was thinking.
page. Yeah, so it'll be more of a link.
Okay,
And then vice versa, the CRA on their website will have the city of Opa-locka as well, that you could go, and then community partners that we have as well.
okay. Thank you, Jay.
Okay. We can move on.
All right, the next item is in regards to memberships. That number is set to $2,500, and that's looking at memberships for the Florida Redevelopment Association. And this is pretty much to ensure that staff is well-versed in all the activities of the redevelopment agency. Following that is education, and this is pretty much payment of conference fees as well as training for staff and board members.
And before we move past education, I think that is so important for us as board members, because there's a lot that will be going on in the CRA when we really don't know how the working's going on. For some of us, this is our first time being involved in the CRA. And I know that when I did some workshops, I think Commissioner Titus Board Member Titus might have remembered back through the Front Porch Initiative in the South Florida Regional Planning Council through St. Thomas's, where we got a lot of experience on community building and that. So education is key. I think I still got my binder from the South Florida Regional Planning Council and St. Thomas. Those classes that we took was very, I see now that I'm using it. I didn't think I would ever need it, but I see now that we're using it. So for this board, education, that's why I, talking to the manager, I told him it was important for Vice Chair Davis to be a part and go to that conference, so that not only is staff getting the training and the education and the knowledge, but the board is getting it also, where Vice Chair can come back and educate us as board members. You know, he's getting the staff part, but to help us out as board members. So I think education is continuing education is so important. As Board Member Paget said, we're moving the CRA, and we want to make sure that we're informed and have a good understanding of what the CRA is and its functionality.
The next item, I'll actually ask for Ms. Anthony to speak to the TIF trust account. Just to elaborate on that item.
Very quickly, the way this is used, if you have used this year, FY22 as example, if you had $1.3 million of TIF revenue coming in, but you only identified $1 million of how you're going to use it, you'd put the surplus in this line item, which would either sit there for future use, or if not used during the course of the year, we could go down into fund balance for use in future years.
So this is this line item will be kind of what Board Member Paget was talking about. That's where those reserve dollars would go on this line item?
It would if it existed, as long as you're going to spend more in a given year than you're going to get in TIF revenue, it would always be zero.
Okay. I don't know whether I understood that.
So,
Say,
Madam Chair,
I don't know whether I understood that. Help me out, because I
I'll do
want
it
to make
again,
sure.
I'm sorry.
I want to make sure you say that kind
No.
of fast. Go ahead, Board Member Paget, and then.
so right now in this year's budget, we are expending more than we're getting in revenues. If what we've done in prior years is that we've expended less, and well, only in the past 3 years, because actually at the beginning we was expending more, and that's how we got in debt. But we have to be able to generate some type of surpluses for the future. That's why we have this $2 million surplus now, because the past few years we have operated with less expenses, and then also we started to generate more of a TIF. If I'm not mistaken.
TIF revenue is tax incremental financing revenue.
Exactly.
The county and the city contribute to it.
Yes.
Exactly. So what I mentioned earlier is right now we are expending more than we're bringing in. And these programs that we have, hopefully some of these programs will be, we knock it out the park and it's done. So then in future years, we don't have to expend so much, so that we could start to build up those revenues for that long-term planning that's based upon our CRA plan. So I'm hoping, like, for example, this historical preservation, that we get this city hall up to par. So next year we won't have to spend $250,000.
That's right.
And maybe that $250,000 will go into the TIF to move forward. So that's the concern that I have, is to make sure that we're intentionally building up those funds for a project for later years. That's all.
I agree with you, Board Member Paget. But my question to Mr. Anthony, this $1.6 million budget, total expense that we have, is that inclusive of the money that we'll be receiving in, I think it's November or January?
Yes, ma'am. No, it starts at the top. You're going to receive, I don't have exact number. I think it's like 1.3 million.
That we're
Probably,
going to receive?
yes, ma'am. And it will be in the account by December 31st. I can promise you that.
Oh, okay, but what I'm asking that because we didn't expend all of our monies from last year. So what carryover did we have from last year?
Last year being FY21, this year.
Yes,
I think, again, I don't have it at fingertips. I think you're going to get probably, well, first off, going into this year, you had funds from the prior year that you didn't fully spend.
yes.
And then there'll be savings this year. And again, I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but with the current forecast that I'm looking at now, which is spending a little less than what you're looking at right here, I think you're going to have about 1.7 million, 1.8 million dollars in unspent this year and prior year funds, which are now available to you for FY22.
That's what Board Member Paget, that's what I was thinking, that there is going to be monies that we have not expended because we haven't expended
That's
from the
correct.
previous year. So this 1.6 is just what you're budgeting for this year, but there is monies in reserve.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just not,
If I can build on Board Members Paget's point, if you want to continue to build up that fund balance for future years, you're going to have to take $400,000 out of this budget. Otherwise, you're going to spend more than the current year revenues.
So
Now, that's a decision you'll have to make.
yeah, but, okay. Can I,
no, yeah, that's fine.
okay. So then I'm kind of lost again. And
I do that to you. I apologize.
because at the end, September 30th,
Yes, ma'am.
2021, this budget is 2021-22.
Correct.
So at the end of September 30th, we have monies that we have not expended.
Approximately $1.9 million. I may be off by 100,000. I don't have it at fingertips, but in the range of $1.9 million.
Okay, so if we have 1.9 million that we have not expended, this 1.6 is based on that 1.9.
Plus the 1.3.
So we're looking at about 3 million, right?
That's correct. But
But this-
board member Paget wants to continue to build that number up. If that is the will of the board, then you're going to have to take about 400,000 out of this budget because you're going to get 1.3 of revenue. If you take 400,000 out of this budget, it would take the expenditures down to 1.2. You then end up putting another 100,000 into that fund balance we were talking about. Did I do it again?
All right,
Okay.
so let
All right.
me see if I can,
Help me out.
all right.
Yeah, please.
So on the last page of our packet, if you look at the first column with the numbers in it and the last 3 lines,
Sure.
you will see a fund balance. The opening fund balance is 1.7.
And I think it's going to be a little bit higher.
All right.
Okay.
So it may be a little, it may be a little higher, but
Okay.
right now, at the end of September 30th, we have 1.7 in the account.
Yes, okay, got it,
Come December, we're going to get 1.3,
got it.
which is the revenue all at the top.
Yes,
So with that 1.3 at the top, we're going to expend 1.6, which you'll see at total expenditures,
yes.
which shows that we're going to be expending 353,000
418 more.
than what we are bringing in,
Yes, I
which
got
is
that.
going to take away from that 1.7
Mhm.
and bring us down 1.3.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to close out this year with.
Next year.
If we, next year. Next year, September 30th with, if no additional funds comes in, is that 1.3. So carrying into next year, if we spend this additional money, we'll only have 1.3 next year. So we'll start off next year lower than we did this year.
This year. Okay.
Right? So
But,
hopefully that means next year, we will have a very conservative budget
Uh-huh.
so that we can start to rebuild back up that surplus if
Okay.
we don't do it this year.
Because when you look at, I got it. So that means that when we look at some of the projects that we're doing, like the fencing, we won't have to do that next year. There were several things that I looked at in the budget that are in the budget this year that we won't be doing next year. You know, it might be other things, but it won't be those things. So we'll be able, we should think in terms of spending less and building back up that fund balance so that as a board, we can look towards those larger projects is what Mayor Paget was saying. I understand. I saw Board Member Bass, I think you had a question earlier, and Board Member Taylor, you can go. Okay, Board Member Taylor.
So my question would be, and maybe Mayor Piker answered it. If we were to, because you said two numbers, if we were to decrease it by 350,000, but then you said 450, we would be even?
Yeah, we'll break even. Yeah.
But you said 450, and then what I'm reading on the paper is 350. So which number?
I chose the larger number just to allow the fund
Oh,
balance
just a
to build
cushion.
up.
Okay. And then what you're proposing, Chairwoman, is to spend it this year and not spend it next year to make it even.
Yeah, because you see, we have $175,000 in here for park amenities.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know we're not gonna spend that amount next year. Because they're gonna, if we give the Parks Department 175,000 and they say they need a playground, they say they need football field done, they're not gonna need that again next year. So that's could be 107. You might put something into the parks, but it definitely won't be that amount. You know, lighting fixtures. If you did lighting fixtures in the CRA area for $75,000, you're not gonna keep doing that every year. Those are things that you, and like Board Member Paget said, the 250 for the historical preservation. We know we're not gonna be doing that every year. So that's 250,000 that we don't have to expend. So next year, we try to be more conservative. This is our kickoff, if you would call it. This is our coming out year. You're not gonna come out every year. You only
I'm here. but
turn
I
16.
guess I'm asking, what if something comes up? So I get what we're saying, but I guess my thing is, what if something comes up? Then we're back where we started, so.
Well, that would
we're
be up-
adding to the negative. And it's-
But that would be up to us to not let it happen. That would be up to us to say, no, we're gonna be conservative. Unless you wanna go back, which probably would be a lot of work,
Yeah, I see that, so.
to go back and to pull $400,000 out of this budget, that would, Mr. Anthony's face is going like
I
this.
see.
So,
But
Madam
that's
Chair,
my only, go ahead. That's my only concern, because 450 is a
Oh,
lot
okay.
for a startup.
Okay, excuse me, Board Member Paget. In the interest of time, because we need to go to the actual board meeting, can we, since we've almost went through everything, we've almost gone through everything, I think that the interim manager here have addressed the questions of the board members that we've had. Can we adjourn this meeting and then go into the actual budget hearing meeting? And let's take out some things and vote on it so we can be in correspondence with time. Can we do that? Okay, thank you. I wanna, okay, Board Member Bass, and then we're gonna do that.
Just a quick question. We were just speaking about where we would find the $15,000.
Yes,
I don't, is this a good time to just mention it or when we recess and start?
when we
again?
recess and
Okay.
start over, you
All
can
right.
mention it.
Thank
Okay,
you. Mhm.
so motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Second.
Okay.